When I first heard about this project, the Adirondack Folk Opera, I was really, really intrigued because I'm a little bit of a history buff, but I'm also new to the state of New York. So this was just one more thing for me to not only as a job opportunity to sing, but to learn about. And I don't know a lot about uh, African American history in this area of New York, which is very famous because of Frederick Douglass, but also up in the Adirondacks. Had no idea that there was a community of Black people living there, and the whole story just got me really excited. I did quite a bit of reading on my own. I've been singing opera maybe for about professionally for almost, I'd say a little over 15 years. I started out as an ethnomusicologist, which is why I think this project, the Adirondack Folk Opera, struck me because of the historical aspect and the research and really bringing that to life and bringing it to the stage. So as an opera singer, and in my past life, an ethnomusicologist, this was the perfect job for me to do. I think the most challenging part of this performance was the time limit that we had to put it together, being that this is a folk opera in a rural community. You know, it's not a big city. There isn't a ton of funding. We didn't have a ton of time to really put the whole thing together as an ensemble with the orchestra, the chorus. So the hardest part for me was definitely only having a day to really put it together. Really, a lot of the magic just happened in the performance, and it was magical because it was real life. It felt like it was happening because we hadn't really done much of the rehearsing because of the time limit that we had. Anna Epps definitely was a woman who I could relate to. Um, my husband, I am married. I've got two children. Same way Anna was married, had two small children, moving to a new place. I've moved around a little bit with my own family to different places, and kind of that unknown of what are we doing here, what's going to happen. I think that struck me. Also, Anna was a woman who, from what we know of, history doesn't tell us a whole lot, but from what Glenn and Helen have kind of come up with in their presentation of this opera, was a woman of, I'd say, quiet strength. Maybe a little louder with her husband, but definitely she was down for the cause, I would say, was ready to move forward and to kind of put aside her feelings, but she was also very strong about what it was she was feeling, and wanted to make sure she got the job accomplished, but made sure she did it in a way that was beneficial to her family. I think Mary Brown and Anna Epps were probably portrayed in a way that was not uncommon of women. I think that we women, especially mothers, wives, tend to downplay our role, and we think it's kind of common, but the roles that we have and the things that we have to do. But there's a lot we have to deal with, especially in these situations, especially Mary Brown, you know, losing her husband and still pushing forward, and with Anna having been one of the only families of the Epps family that was left there in the Adirondacks, was certainly determined to stay, as many families did leave, and decided to make her home there, decided to have, I think she had 6 more children while she was there in the Adirondacks. I feel like in current times, the times that we're living in, it's important to tell the stories of those who have been marginalized in the past. Definitely, when you look around the Adirondack community, I personally didn't know much about the area. And when I got there, I expected to see this large Black community there because of this wonderful story. And not seeing that community made me want to dig. And that's kind of what made me, I think I did a lot more of my research after the project ended than I did beforehand, actually, to kind of find out what happened to everyone. And I think that the community has something to learn about why people didn't stay. But also, I think the community has something to celebrate that this happened there, and that Black people who didn't have the right to vote were given the opportunity right there in their community. And I feel like that's something to celebrate and to build upon. I haven't known Glenn for a long time, but from what I know of him, I think his intentions were very, very pure in creating this opera and creating this opportunity for others to learn. Um, Having sung some of his other pieces, he's very much interested in history and kind of reclaiming the history I think that's been lost, or not even lost, but perhaps forgotten. Um, I think that I kind of asked the same question myself. Why is he doing this opera, about Adirondack? But when I got to read the story and got to learn more about what it was about, I really applauded him for doing this. And I applaud those of any race, black or white, who can get behind him and who can be supportive of him and who can help tell the story. And again, this is a learning opportunity for us. And it just so happens that Glenn is the teacher. I will say that there have been many opportunities for me as a black opera singer. Um, I won't say that everything has been completely fair. I feel like we have a lot to do. Um, I feel like for a field where many directors, uh, you know, uh, conductors, all of that, have these great imaginations of how to put the opera on the stage. I have, in my experience, seen that some are not so imaginative when it comes to who to put in these stories. And it's been a little bit disheartening. I haven't given up. I have lots of friends of color who are succeeding and are doing well. But I am grateful for American music and American opera. I feel like we can't get enough of it. I feel like this country needs to do more to support American composers to tell our own stories. And they don't even have to be our own stories, but they're stories that we tell, as opposed to the European composers who are telling still wonderful stories with beautiful music. I feel like we're just as capable in this country and to use our own history, to use our own people, whoever they are, whether they're descendants of slaves, descendants of immigrants, or descendants of slave holders or whoever. I feel like we all have something to contribute to the stories that can be told. Opera is so very grand, and I feel like in this particular community, uh, and it's called a folk opera because it comes from this rural community, and I think the story is dramatic, and the story kind of needs the vehicle of an opera, the drama, the high art in a community of just purity and beauty, as I would describe it. Uh, just you can hear in Glenn's music the dancing, you can hear the instrumentation, you can hear an oboe here, you can hear where the cymbals will go, you can hear the children's chorus, you can hear where the soloists are. So I think opera for this particular story just makes a lot of sense and can be very, very successful.